Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. We got a big week planned ahead. The Super Bowl, kind of like the break week where they have the Pro Bowl. And I don't know if you saw this, Matt, but they are talking about doing the updated onside kick for the Pro Bowl. It was voted down last year. And what it is they give you a fourth down instead, and you throw your offense out there. I think for the Pro Bowl, it's going to be on the 25-yard line. It's like 4th and 15 or 4th and 20 or something like that, and you have a chance to go for it. And I think it's something that I would like to see. I watched a video. We talked about the XFL rules. I watched a video of how that would actually look with the teams kind of matched up at the same yard line and then the kicker way back. It kind of looked dumb to me. Just do a punt at that point, because that way you're getting some type of chaos. It was almost like just a poor, slow developing run play. And I put it on our Twitter, so if you go on southboundsports.com, you can find our Twitter there, and you can see the video put out by the XFL. But because both the return team and the kicking team are so close together, they block each other immediately, which I know they're trying to do to get the extra hitting out of the game. But there's no collisions, and then because of that, no blocker is going to be able to hold their block for 10 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever it takes for the kick to be in the air. And I don't know what the hang time calculates out to be on these. But, I mean, you're a coach, Matt. How long do you expect your guys to hold their block?
In those situations, not forever.
Yeah, so normally it's like what?
If they maintain any kind of block for any amount of time, that's a win.
It's like 3 seconds is ideal, correct?
I would say roughly, yeah.
And so on a kick, I think that would be the minimum. So right off the bat, you're going to have return team struggling to hold blocks because you're not going to put your best blockers out there anyway. It's usually special team, like lower skilled guys that don't have a starting spot, maybe guys fighting to stay on the roster. And you're going to have that. So that's one thing that I didn't like in the XFL rules. I'm glad the NFL is approaching it for their Pro Bowl, how they're going to do the fourth down instead of an onside kick, because even with that, it's impossible to do an onside kick. You can't, I don't know how the XFL is going to handle it, but you can't just kick one into the ground and hope your team recovers. Although I think that would be a lot more fun if you had to kick it and they had to go 30 yards, almost like a squib kick. And while the team's scrumming down there, have it like a live ball, because I think that would be funny, and I would rather see that. To be honest, instead of kicking the ball in the air for these XFL ones, I wonder if someone will try that. You just squib it every time and hope your guys can break through and recover it. Because that I would like to see. I don't know if you're allowed to do that, if it's a live ball or not. But that's my thoughts going into it. You have anything else on that?
No, I think that's a great way to try to see about making the game safer. And if everyone, for the people that keep pounding on the CTE related stuff, that's a safe way that you have players playing at the highest level and you introduce those rule changes, and you can always go at the end of the game and go, all right, is this something we want to move forward with? And if it looks horrible, then you just scrap it for next year, no harm, no foul.
I do like that they're trying to make the game safer, because one thing that I've always worried about is they talk about the game changing so much in 10 years you won't recognize it. If you look through history, everything's changed like decade by decade by decade. And, you went from not having a forward pass to having a forward pass to leather helmets to then having wide receivers and all kind of other shifts. So I don't want to see it drastically change, but things like this to make it safer are definitely an upgrade and going in the right direction. Now, this comes a week before, because we're really not going to talk much on the Pro Bowl, but just to get ready for the Super Bowl matchup, Andy Reid, for once, does not choke, and he makes it back to the Super Bowl. This is his only, second appearance? He made it with McNabb in Philadelphia, and I would say he did enough coaching-wise to win that game. I still blame that game on Donovan McNabb, and I think they lost my boy Terrell Owens a chance to win the Super Bowl, because he balled out in that game, and they kept it close, and they couldn't come up with it because McNabb was sick or whatever the excuse they gave. So still bitter about that one for Terrell Owens. I would have loved for him to win a Super Bowl and to break that stigma of how these prima donna wide receivers can't win the big one. You can throw Antonio Brown in that mix, T.O., Ocho Cinco, Randy Moss. I mean, all of them. Anyone that had a bunch of celebrations on the field, they're not winning the big one. OBJ. Did I say Antonio Brown? Antonio Brown. How many times can I say his name? Not even in the league. I mean, did you see he was in having a scuttle with the police? He sponsored a youth football league down there or something, and they don't even want a sponsorship anymore. That's how much of a cancer he's become. Not just in regards to the NFL. That's off the field stuff. But getting back to the matchup, the 49ers now have a chance, Matt, to do the ultimate State Farm takedown. They took down Aaron Rodgers. Now they're coming after Patrick Mahomes. And I, for one, hope they can do it because I hate those commercials. I hate even saying the name, but people wouldn't know what I'm talking about if I didn't. In terms of choking, Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why he doesn't get more heat. He was flat out embarrassing in that game. You're talking about being one of the best quarterbacks out there. What was he doing? Holding the ball forever, not throwing it at all, not even throwing it away. And then at the end of the game, he was just chucking it deep. Peyton Manning, for as much shit as I talk on him, he would never have had a game get that out of control where Aaron Rodgers looked like he could do nothing. Especially early in his career. Like, for as much as he choked, they were all usually close games. Missed field goals, the Vinatieri things, coming down with the Patriots. It wasn't like Peyton Manning was just out there not knowing what was going on. But Aaron Rodgers, man, that was a complete beatdown. And for one, I didn't see anyone in the media talk about it.
But I think that was because of how physical the running game was for San Francisco, that it almost took away some of the heat from Aaron Rodgers. Because for as successful as they were running the ball, it completely chewed clock and ate time, and it kept the ball out of his hands.
But your team got down. Your team got down so many points. You're supposedly considered the quarterback of whatever people want to talk about him being an all-time great quarterback. You look at Tom Brady in that Super Bowl against the Falcons, how they got so far behind. He came out slinging it in the second half. If you remember the amazing catch, who was it, Edelman? Wes Welker, can't even remember. The one that like almost hit the ground. Like he was throwing into coverage, moving the ball downfield. Aaron Rodgers came out and didn't do any of that. It was like same old, same old. We'll get a little bit of a touchdown, but yeah, you're right. We're not going to have any sustaining drive so that our defense is just going to get shredded. And I think that was what the issue was. Like if you're having your defense on the game the entire time, of course the 49ers are going to run all over you. And to me, that's on him. Give him some of the heat. I just can't take it. Like at this point, anyone that talks about how great he is, it's just a joke. I can't make fun of Andy Reid. I mean, yeah, Aaron Rodgers has one Super Bowl. One. I mean, look at the other guys. Ben Roethlisberger, he's been in 3 Super Bowls. Peyton Manning was in, 3 Super Bowls at least. Eli Manning has been to multiple Super Bowls. You're Aaron Rodgers playing in the NFC a weaker conference, to be honest, and he's been to, 1? If he's supposed to be so great, you got to get to multiple Super Bowls. I think we made that point last week. But come on, it's embarrassing. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, if he gets it done and wins the Super Bowl, or even Garoppolo, perennial backup, I mean, now these guys have been to as many Super Bowls as Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to be just as successful as him, in my mind. Have anything to add on that?
I don't know that's the be-all, end-all, because when you look at guys like the Dan Marino always gets the asterisk, and in a lesser comparison, Phillip Rivers, that's had a productive career, but hasn't been to a Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl. I don't know that it takes away. Like if that's the thing that puts you ahead is having that one Super Bowl ring, because Eli Manning has been to multiple Super Bowls, and I wouldn't put him in that category.
Yeah, but people aren't trying to push him as the greatest quarterback in the league or the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, they try to talk about how Aaron Rodgers is the best in the league. If that's the best you can do, I mean, Matt, it's been, what, a decade? Over a decade? When was that Super Bowl? Was that the 2008 one, or was it later than that? 2009? I mean,
it was 10.
Yeah, everyone talking about Ben Roethlisberger and how he's been falling off. Like, yeah, of course he's not as young as he used to be, but multiple Super Bowls. I'm not talking about winning them. I'm talking about appearances. And you might know this better than I do off the top of my head, but Dan Marino, they didn't have as many playoff teams back then, did they? Wasn't it only 4? Am I thinking wrong? I don't think they had the wild card matchups.
That's a good question. I don't know that.
Because I would say that gives him a little bit more slack. When you're Aaron Rodgers and you've been in the playoffs, I think they said this is like the 10th time. He's like in the NFC Championship game, he's like 1-9 or something crazy like that.
But I'll say with specifically to this year's playoff run, it was questionable for the Packers to get to where they were. When you look at, like, with the spot of Jimmy Graham's catch last week and the just kind of winning badly, if that's a term that you can use, that you limp through the playoffs, eventually you're going to run into that buzzsaw, and that's exactly what ended up happening. I think the Niners are now just a completely different team, and I think it's, to me, the funny thing is, for as much of an abandonment as they did for a while, to see a lot of those fans coming back out of the woodwork now that they're Super Bowl contenders is kind of laughable. An interesting thing going into the Super Bowl is Chip Kelly, the mastermind behind great NFL teams, because he was with the Eagles, gets canned, they win the Super Bowl 2 years later. Here he goes to the Niners, builds them up, puts the pieces in place, gets fired. Now they're competing for a Super Bowl. So people hate on what he's able to do, but this is 2 different NFL teams, and I'm curious to see how his progression goes with UCLA now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm looking at this. 1, 2, 3. I mean, he hasn't been to as many championship games. I forget what the stat was they showed during the game. Maybe they meant divisional or greater, like where they get eliminated, like in elimination games. He's been, I mean, it's pretty poor. They've only been in, he's made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Even the Super Bowl year was a wild card year. Like, Dan Marino didn't have that luxury, is all I'm saying. I don't think that there was a wild card back then, and I'm looking at the Green Bay Packer history to kind of see. Of course, they were awful back then, because I think it was just in the 80s, it was first round, second round. In the 90s, I think maybe, so for half of Marino's, but like not when he was in his younger Ben Roethlisberger spot where they could make that push. But I like your Chip Kelly thing. Everyone hates on him. But maybe you're right. We will see, because if you remember, they have what? Shanahan, the 49ers coach, wasn't he the offensive coordinator for the Falcons when they blew that Super Bowl?
Yes, he was.
So in terms of choking, this is a big deal for him, because the Chiefs have been starting flat. And it adds up to another Super Bowl heartbreak for the Shanahans, where if the 49ers come out hot and he takes his foot off the gas, because like they kind of did that against Green Bay. They just started to run the ball like you had pointed out. You run the ball, you run the ball, you run the ball. Great. Give your defense some rest and things like that. But in this Super Bowl, he's already made that mistake once. You have to just put your foot on the throat and claim victory. So if he chokes again, and I mean, look how Philadelphia has fallen off since Chip Kelly's been away. If this is the same type of thing, and I'm an NFL coach, maybe they didn't realize that, or I mean an NFL owner, maybe at that point they try to bring Chip Kelly on at least as a GM. If he can identify talent that much and help get these younger guys in, because right now running the ball, the 49ers have been unstoppable. And they're not doing it with big name guys like Derrick Henry or whatever. They're not getting like the Heisman running back candidates out of college. So, I don't know. Anything else you got from those games?
I have some concerns for Kansas City going into this. I really want to see Andy Reid snap this streak, but Mahomes was featured on Madden, so this could be the potential breaking of the Madden curse.
You have that. You have the State Farm thing. I mean, it's all adding up. Doing commercials, everything that I say that they shouldn't be doing. Doing promotional materials, doing a ton of commercials, getting to the Super Bowl. It's all adding up for a Chiefs loss, Matt. Andy Reid is your coach.
Their offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, has been interviewing for a lot of head coaching jobs. So I don't know how much of that is going to be in the back of his mind of trying to coach for another gig or trying to get himself into a better position. Sometimes you take risks and do different things to try to professionally advance. I mean, it's plot lines that it's easy to write off, but they're to completely ignore them is kind of crazy.
But last year we looked at the coaching changes going into the playoffs, and anyone that was interviewing for another job, they usually performed very poorly. Because if you look at it like, okay, I have this other gig, and who was it? The Giants coach? I forget who made the move last year, but we had looked at their performance in the playoffs, wherever they were from. He was like an offensive coordinator before. I mean, look at the Vikings. 7 3-and-outs as the offensive coordinator, and then he gets hired by the Browns.
Yeah,
you can't tell me he was putting his best stuff out there for Vikings fans, and it's a shame to go into the Super Bowl. Andy Reid, I mean, he has to be right there, and I would love to see him just because we rib on him all the time on this show, Andy Reid. But if he could go forward and win a Super Bowl, I think that would be great for his legacy, and I wonder if he would almost just retire. Because why not? I think if he cements it and retires, that instantly puts him in the mind of Hall of Fame voters. Almost like a John Elway type thing. You struggled for so long, everyone remembers you being in the league forever, and then getting killed in the playoffs, not performing, very John Elway-esque, until he finally went in. Now, he won back-to-back. I mean, would Andy Reid try to be that bold? I don't know. But we'll see. He has to get the first one first. I don't want to jinx them. They've already done enough jinxing themselves. State Farm commercials and Madden placements and all kind of other stuff. So it'll be good. We'll give our full breakdown next week. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about it. But Green Bay didn't show up. Tennessee, I mean, Vrabel, dude, he just rubbed me wrong. So I'm glad that they lost. I don't know what it is about him. Just watching him on the sideline, it didn't look like he would be a nice guy to talk to. Let's get into our next topic, Tom Brady. The tracker's on. People are talking about the rumors flying because you mentioned it earlier, Phillip Rivers. Not only is Tom Brady in this carousel that's upcoming, but Phillip Rivers as well. Because there were some speculations that he was he might be looking at Miami. Phillip Rivers getting out of LA. Is he going to another destination? I've said on this show multiple times I would like for the Steelers to just try to hedge their bets and bring in another veteran quarterback and make a run. Maybe how that competition will push Ben, and if he gets hurt, which seems like it's inevitable at this point, then you have another veteran to go in and potentially stay fresh, whether it's not Tom Brady, if you can get Phillip Rivers. I doubt they would do that because their defense is still young. I mean, they made enough plays on defense. They played the 49ers very close earlier in the year in San Francisco. So that was a game that if you're looking at it in retrospect, this is a 49ers team that has been running everybody over lately. The Steelers at that point, you had no idea what was going on. Was it Rudolph's first game or second game? They didn't have a direction at that point, and they still played them very close. So in terms of talent, it's on the team. I think quarterback really hurt them this year, and if they could get some consistency at wide receiver, and at this point, like I've said, trade Juju, bring in a veteran wide receiver, and a veteran quarterback, even if they played on the same team together, and see what can happen next year and take a shot. Get some of these young guys at least playoff experience. I think if you bring in Rivers, or if Ben can stay healthy, or Tom Brady, you get a playoff team and you get some experience, then you can bring in a younger guy. But Tom Brady right now, the big rumors flying about him were that there was a potential divorce involved. Some of the tabloids were hitting on it, saying that she wanted him to retire. And so it was pushing towards the issue that he might just step away from the game to save his marriage. At least that's how I read some of the rumors. I don't know if it's true or not. Probably not. I think he came out and said that they're in a good spot right now, which makes me think that he could stay there. I mean, you think he'd go with the Raiders? L.A.? Is he going to go out to the West Coast?
Las Vegas.
Yeah, what did I say? L.A.? If he goes to the Raiders, man, I don't see any negative to it. Could you imagine all the haters on us for John Gruden talk if Tom Brady went there and won a Super Bowl?
Well, it's not out of the realm of possibilities. He went out and got Rich Gannon when he went to when he built the Raiders to go to the Super Bowl.
Hey, that would be an awesome point. If he got Tom Brady and they won a Super Bowl and Belichick struggled next year, would that change people's minds?
Well, I kind of thought, piggybacking off of Garoppolo quarterbacking in San Francisco, how much does that situation hurt now? You know, one of the knocks going way back to Bill Walsh was that he always believed managerially that you want to get rid of a player when he still has about 2 or 3 years left. So following that kind of mindset, the quarterback in New England would be Garoppolo had they have not moved him out right away. Still had Brady the option to move out somewhere, and you still have a solid piece for years to come with New England.
Yeah, but at that point, let's say they moved Tom Brady to the 49ers and the results were reversed. Like Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl then, because he's won Super Bowl since that move. What year did that move take place? And it took Garoppolo a good bit of time until he was actually serviceable in the league. Didn't they go like 2-14 or four wins? I mean, they got Joe Bosa. So it wasn't like they were a great team last year. That was like the second overall pick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, I mean, could you imagine? It might not have been, it might have been a 4-year plan, 5-year plan, but on that term, I mean, if you're New England, you're losing those other Super Bowls because I don't think Garoppolo's getting it done. Not that fast.
Well, they also had the coaching issues in San Francisco too, that they didn't bring Shanahan on until a year or two ago.
Well, yeah, but like your point, maybe it was Chip Kelly building the team, because that's been a big thing when Jed York, when they had Harbaugh, like it took a while for them to build that consistency in that roster, and he came in and kind of flipped the script and made them that hard-running team. If you look at this 49ers team, they are built very similar. And they had issues with the GM not going after those guys, and I think it took a while for York to actually get rid of him to get to this point, and Chip Kelly kind of came in and kind of followed the same exact blueprint of what they had before. Build on the lines and get your push there on the defense and offensive lines, and then go from there. I mean, like, look at the Bosa pick. That worked out beautifully. What if they would have wasted that pick on like a wide receiver or like a very Browns-type pick, and you pick another quarterback? You had 2 wins or whatever it was last year, and you're like, okay, we need another quarterback. I mean, they very easily could have done that. So at some point, if you're the Browns or even the Lions and you're looking around the league and you're like, how can the team go from the second overall pick to being in the Super Bowl? Did you see what their draft was like? They've only drafted if you're going all the way back, they drafted Patrick Willis. They had a bunch of just offense and defensive linemen, and they built around that. And then they got their quarterback through a trade. You don't have to draft these high quarterbacks. Let other teams develop them for you while you build up your core, and I think that's what Pittsburgh needs to look at. you're not going to have a serviceable offensive line. I mean, their offensive line's been pretty great. I mean, it wasn't their fault Mason Rudolph got knocked out. I mean, yeah, they're not running the ball as great as they could because teams are just stacking the line. If they get a quarterback in that can make the reads, I think that opens everything up. And then I think they're right back there almost in the same exact situation that the 49ers are in. Maybe they don't get to the playoffs. They don't have the luxury of playing Aaron Rodgers. But in the AFC, you never know. So that's my thought. You got anything else on that?
Well, I was just thinking it's early on, but going into getting closer to the silly season for the NFL, knowing Pittsburgh doesn't have the first-round draft pick, where do you think they should focus it? Do you think it should be skills, or do you think it should be linemen?
At that point, it doesn't really, to me, at this point, it doesn't really matter because you're looking at what your team needs. And so I would like to see them get more speed on the defense. It showed itself pretty well with the Fitzpatrick trade. It's worked out. You have him on a young contract still for a couple more years, I believe. And that's why I would want to make a move in that direction. Get talent. Get speed and talent. And I'm not even just talking about defense. I mean, at the running back position, how about an extra burner for a wide receiver? Something that can help you open things up. And if there's a great lineman there, then great, take them. Because you can get speed in the later rounds. They might just be unpolished, but I think you can work it out with the way this team's set up and use them in situational positions. Like, hey, we need some speed on the defense. You're playing nickel. You're only playing this many downs a game, whatever. Or, hey, you're a linebacker. You're defensive end. You're just going to be speed rushing every time you're on the field. Like, make it pretty clear, cut and dry, and build the team around that, and I think you can be successful. I think the key is outside the draft. I honestly think it's just the quarterback position. I think with Ben, this season's different. They're in the playoffs. I mean, I think that's pretty clear that you can make that. By looking at the roster, you only needed to win 2 games in the final, and they were against poor teams. I think Ben would have gotten that done. So you have to decide, what are you going to do as a franchise? Get some young. Like I said, I don't know if they have to draft a quarterback. You can find a quarterback that's maybe, I don't even want to say broken. You brought up Jameis Winston before, but I think with the way this team is young, get some more speed on defense and at some skilled positions on offense and see what happens. Maybe you can work a deal out while contracts aren't crazy right now. Maybe someone that's on the downswing that you don't have to offer $1 bazillion to break the salary cap. Sure, you can draft, and that's why a lot of teams like to draft the quarterback, and you hope to win before they demand the money. Or Tom Brady, he takes cuts every year. He takes cuts in salary just so that they can get more skilled guys or more defenders or whatever they need to do to make it work with other guys. And I think that's why he's been in New England for so long. Not a lot of teams really seem to do that. I just don't know why. Maybe that is a Belichick thing. Anything else you got for the NFL?
No.
All right. We got back to baseball because Los Angeles, their city council came together and they want Major League Baseball to name the Dodgers World Series champions for the past 2 years because of the cheating by the Astros and the Red Sox. I mean, we talked about this. I mean, I think we've been talking about it for 3 weeks now, where they had the stealing signs. We talked about it last year whenever the video came out, and it went viral on Twitter and Reddit and everywhere, where they had a guy standing in the hallway smashing a garbage can lid to tell you if a curveball was coming. Well, another video surfaced after some rumors came out and some more leaks that Major League Baseball was trying to quiet. I didn't see ESPN or anyone reporting on it, but I did see the conspiracy stuff trending on Twitter where I forget who it was, but they hit a home run, the Astros. He hits a home run to win the game. He runs around the bases and he tells the players not to take his jersey off, and they said that he was wearing a buzzer. So they knew that other teams had caught onto the trash can. So he had a little wireless buzzer, like a Bluetooth. I guess Bluetooth, I don't think it would have as much range. Actually, maybe it would. I mean, video game controllers work pretty far away now these days. I don't know. Maybe it was an RF device, but I guess I don't know. They had something where he would wear it under his jersey, and instead of hearing the trash cans, you would just feel the buzz. So he hits a home run, goes into the dugout, and comes out with a different shirt on. Tells him he holds his jersey like this, and if you're on not watching the video, you have no idea. But he gripped the buttons with both hands as he rounded third base, telling them not to rip his jersey off. I saw the video. I mean, there's no way someone faked that video. And he runs off, hits the game-winning home run, and it was to send them to the World Series. I think it was against the Yankees. And the Yankees, of all teams, I mean, they have the most money. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had someone on their team that were leaking these little tidbits. But it goes all the way back. I was joking with Matt before the show. One of the players said that Tony La Russa used to do it way back in the day, in the 80s, before they even had a lot of this stuff. He said that they would have someone in the outfield. Where was it at? Where did he coach before? Was it the White Sox or someone? I don't even know. But it was one of the fields where they had the pitcher, and that pitcher would sit out in the outfield and hold something up behind the fence so the batter could see it. So he would see the signs on the television broadcast, because they used to have the television camera set out there. He would sit out there, and if you weren't the starting pitcher, like let's say you pitched the day before, it would be your job to go out there and try to read the signs to help your team. And so they said that it's been going on for a long time, and I don't know. I just don't understand how they're going to go ahead and knock certain teams and players down, like my man Barry Bonds. They did the Hall of Fame vote. They didn't get in. I think you need 70%, 75% maybe. He's really close. He's like at 60-something, 70-something. I mean, they put in Larry Walker and Derek Jeter. This is the same Derek Jeter that was named in that one report in the 90s with Mariano Rivera in terms of taking steroids. We don't know. We don't know if he did or not. I mean, if you're named in the report, that's all Barry Bonds was named in. They never caught him doing it. And that other unnamed report never came out. So if Derek Jeter was named in the first one, just like Barry Bonds, why the hell wouldn't he be named in the second one? And we'll never know, because they squashed it. They don't want you to know. But for whatever reason, they just hate Barry Bonds because he didn't do any of these interviews. I mean, I don't remember Derek Jeter doing a ton of interviews or TV spots. What's the difference? Oh, one played for the Yankees. That's the only difference. That is the only difference between those two guys. And then one had a bunch of other guys call him the captain and all this stuff. Yeah. I mean, really, if Barry would have signed with the Yankees, Matt, he would have had a World Series title. He could have signed anywhere else, really. The Giants, he just wanted to stay in San Francisco. I can't fault him for that. It would have been like if Chipper Jones never won anything with the Braves. Stayed there almost his entire career. You can't help it that where he wanted to play with his godfather, Willie Mays, out in San Francisco. I think that was the reason. I could be wrong. Grew up watching him. I mean, you play with the Pirates. Pirates weren't winning anything. I don't know. You have any thoughts on this whole scandal?
I'm going to ask you a really stupid question. Why does it matter if teams are stealing signals?
Well, I've said it before. I don't care about any of it. Let them steal signs. They were saying that it was illegal because they were stealing them from the broadcast. So they had the guy in the hall. Normally they have the televisions on delay. So you get the sign. There's like a 10-second delay. Your pitch is made before they put it on there. But they were saying that they did not have their televisions on a delay at their own stadium. And so the guy standing in the hallway, he was seeing the signs as the catcher was putting him down to actually go ahead and give them the thing. Which, now that I think about it, I was at a Pirates game this year, and maybe those televisions weren't on a delay either. So maybe only the television actual broadcast ones are, because I guess you wouldn't have sound on the televisions at the stadium. Maybe it's part of the fan experience And it probably is, to be honest, because they want people to go out of their seats and not miss the game. So they have 100 TVs around the food court, and they have like little standing tables because they want you to spend more and more money. So I would imagine a lot of this is Major League Baseball's undoing. They were trying to squeeze more money out, and instead a couple teams realized, like, hey, we can see exactly what they're doing because this is the same exact TV view that they show where John Smoltz or whatever pitcher is in the booth can sit there and tell you exactly what pitch is coming. So all they're doing is having a pitcher sit there in the hall, watch the monitor, and bang out if it's a curveball or whatever each player wants. They did have, each player was different. Some only wanted to know if it was off speed. Some only wanted to know if it was fastball. Some wanted to know if it was a curveball because that's the pitch that they wanted to hit. So if it buzzed, they knew whatever. And then you could see the one guy, if it wasn't his pitch, he was doing like these half-ass swings just trying to just hit the ball in the foul play if it was coming across as a strike. So he was just sitting there waiting for them to throw, waiting for that bang or that buzz. So I don't know. It's almost like the steroids thing. Do I care if people are taking it? No. Is it going to affect my day? Is it going to make me wake up and say, you know what? I think I should just take a bunch of roids today. I'm not being my best self. Like, I really don't care. Because a lot of these guys, they're working out all the time anyway. I mean, how disappointing if you're a kid and you go to see a game and your favorite player's sitting out. If they can do some type of HGH or steroids or whatever so that they don't have to sit out as many games, more power to it. That's how they make their money. I don't care. I really don't. They keep talking about how they're banning Russia from the Olympics and all these other doping things. You really don't think that other countries are doping too? Like, you have to be naive to think that. Look at some of the athletes that the United States have. I mean, their track team went through the scandal. There's been rumors that the Williams sisters are on roids. Where's the media on that? Oh, wait, they can't because that's an international American icon. Not the fact that they're twice as strong as anyone else on the female circuit. And they're more ripped than Barry Bonds was. Like, that's what I'm supposed to believe, that that's just natural? When you can just compare them to other women tennis players on our same team. They're not that jacked. So I imagine it's happening in every sport. If Lance Armstrong, the most popular athlete in like the 90s for a bit because of his cancer awareness thing, if he can be on roids, they're all on roids. They're all on it. I mean, the United States team, they were complicit with that U.S. doping thing because a lot of those players on that same cycling team, I guess they're not players, riders on that same cycling team were named for steroids, not just Lance Armstrong, and no one really cared. They only cared for Lance because of his cancer bracelets, if we're being honest. They thought that they got ripped off. Anyone else, I just assume that they're on them, Matt. Until like they have like a thing that's going to get ahead of the time, or like they just have regular looking dudes out there playing. The only one I'm not 100% sure on are some of the basketball guys, like Shaq. Like, if he looked like he was in shape, I mean, could you imagine how much longer he could have played? Some of those LeBron teams he rolled out on, I mean, he could have used them. That's all I'm saying. So I don't think it's every guy. I just think that a lot of them do. It's my final judgment. Anything else you have?
Well, the reason that I posed that to you was because you look at the lengths that some of these colleges now are going to protect their signals for their up-tempo. They're using towels, they're using blankets, they're using signs, they're using signalers, they're having all this other stuff. And it kind of goes with the territory of, I mean, you look back at Florida State's national championship game in 2013. Damian Craig was the quarterback's coach, went to Auburn, knew all the signals, and it was rumored that in the first half he was calling out all of the plays. And then in the second half, they shielded the signals and ended up coming back into that game. But I think that's an example of, like, it's going on in other sports. And I've seen teams that if they're signaling stuff in, they're looking to see what are the tendencies. If you know the team you're playing is a signaling team from the sideline, you're trying to pick those up.
It's almost like the Tom Brady thing. We can go back to it and versus Bill Belichick. Do you really think a lot of people call Tom Brady a cheater? And I don't think it's because of like most of the Patriot stuff cheating, because a lot of that goes back to the head coach. It's not Tom Brady asking random video crews to show up at a Bengals game and record the sideline. It's not him doing the original, what was it? Whatever gate there was, Spygate, like back in the mid 2000s or whatever. Like Tom Brady wasn't out there getting guys to give him extra film. Like that was Belichick, 100%. The only thing Brady could be named of is the Deflategate, which I think is just an idiotic thing, because like basic science can prove if you're a guy and you have a sports ball, or hell, if you're a gal that has a sports ball, fill it up, put it outside right now. It's freezing cold outside. And then go pick it up in a couple days or a day later. I guarantee the cold will suck some of the air out. It's basic science. So if that's why you're calling him a cheater, like I guess whatever makes you feel better. But in terms of actual cheating, like dude, that's 100% Belichick. So do you really think last year, when was the last cheating scandal? It was this year, wasn't it? Yeah. So this year, if Tom Brady leaves there and goes wins the Super Bowl with the Raiders, meanwhile, there's another recording sideline video thing scandal in New England, like then you kind of know, okay, who needs who here? Because it's not Tom Brady that's getting random rogue practice footage from these other teams. Like, come on. So
no, I mean, I guess the only point that I would say it's a little bit different for baseball is that if they're in the clubhouse and they're watching it off of a TV, like that's a bit different. But I think if Major League Baseball really wants to make that go away, why do people need to be that far back? In the clubhouse. If the game's going on, just have it where you have security monitoring it and people can't go back there.
I just don't understand, like why? Why can't you just mix it up? Because you could change it up. You have to know, okay, these guys might be stealing our signs. If you're using the same signs 20 games into the year, like you're a pitcher and it's like your 20th game and you're like, just give me the same old there, buddy. I mean, everyone kind of uses the same thing, but I understand, like, yeah, there's some gamesmanship and there's some back and forth. I know that they're trying to keep technology out of it. The NFL does that. I mean, even at the college ranks, there's been reports of headsets going dark. I mean, you still have teams that pull the fire alarm on the visiting team's hotel the day before big games, rivalry games in college. Like, that kind of stuff always goes on. So, like, stealing and trying to cheat, it's just a part of whatever the game is. So I think at that point, it just becomes a gamesmanship thing where do head nods, like do 2 or 3 things at the same time. Like, why does the catcher have to use his hand down between his legs? Why at the same time he doesn't give like a 2 while he rubs his chest or like shakes his head? Like, give 2 or 3 signals. That's what a lot of college teams do now. They have 3 or 4 guys on the sideline signaling, like you said, and you don't know which one to look at. They tell the quarterback which one to look at on the sidelines for each drive, and then they're all signaling different things to try to prevent that. And so it kind of gives it, I understand with catching, there's only one catcher back there, but mix it up. Do 2 or 3 signals at the same time. Make it harder.
Or do you go through and you have it signal. I mean, if you really want to get rid of it, the easy thing to do is just one of your coaches, pitcher, catcher, have Bluetooth, and you just call the next pitch in. That's
true. Yeah, why don't you just go to headsets? I mean, that would be a perfect branding thing. NBA, weren't they already? I don't know if they're doing it yet, but they were trying to get sponsorships on their jerseys and trying to make it look cool, which that will never look cool. Like, I've never thought, growing up, like watching some NASCAR stuff, like, oh, you know what's really cool? That guy's jacket that just has 100 ads on it. Like, I want to wear that. Like, no, I've never thought that. If the NBA is trying to sell me like a jersey at the store that has a bunch of ads on it, I'm not going to buy it. I hate that soccer does it.
And the old Miller Lite.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't want to see that. So, That's my thoughts. You got anything for high tempo this week?
Actually, not really this week.
I had a couple things that I was looking at, and I ended up putting most of them just on the big board for people that are watching the video. But one of the things else that I was looking at, whenever they have a lot of the NBA stuff, they're talking about Zion Williamson coming back, and now it's bleeding over into the college game. Because if you watch some of the ESPN college broadcasts, I think it was Georgia, Kentucky, I've seen some screenshots where they brought back the Zion tracker, and they had like his almost a third of the screen of the side of the broadcast was a list of his stats from last year. Like if I'm watching your broadcast, I don't care. I know ESPN owns the NBA rights. I just don't care. Why are you taking up the entire screen to show me this? It's almost like their sideline camera for the national championship game. Why? Why are you showing me two dudes just standing there? Put them in a little window like the picture-in-picture. Don't take up a third of the screen. People are not watching to see your guys. They don't care about Williamson. A lot of college basketball fans don't watch the NBA and vice versa. It's almost like a different sport. And I'm using this to segue in because the next one I have, and you actually sent me this, the Pac-12 Network. They signed with Vidgo. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. And I looked into the service because I've never heard of it. And it's another television service that you have to pay per month to get television. And they're all almost the exact same price, $39.99. So $40 a month, you can get your live sports that you're going to stream. And like I've said last week, for the national championship game, they don't have the servers in place for live sports. So whenever you try to stream a big game, it's going to lag and buffer the entire time. That's just the way it is right now. Until they actually put money on it, you really think the Pac-12 signing with Vidgo is going to get their games out there and have you able to watch them better? No. No, there's a big reason why Netflix tried to look at live sports and they backed away. Because they know that they can't deliver the bandwidth, because they might have 1 million people watch their hottest show, like I don't even know what it would be, The Witcher maybe, but they're not going to watch it at the exact same time because of different time zones. Sports is totally different. For the Super Bowl, it's at 6 p.m. Eastern or whatever it ends up being. Everyone's going to be watching at the exact same time. It's not like 1 million people spread out throughout the week like Netflix usually gets. They just can't handle it. So you're going to sign your entire college conference that's already having viewership issues with an unknown video service, because I always keep up to date on these, one that you know is not going to deliver reliable performance most likely. I mean, of all the ones that are out there, maybe YouTube. PlayStation's already folding, I believe. I think they're getting rid of theirs because it was a failure. Because theirs was doomed to begin with because you needed a PlayStation to even watch it. How many old people have a PlayStation that they watch TV on? Like, give me a break. There's probably zero. I'm thinking of my grandparents, the only video game console they ever had was a Wii. Like, it's not like I'd go to Graham's house and she'd fire up a PlayStation 4 or 5 or whatever. Like, that would never happen in a million years. Like, I got to put my TV on. So, of course, I was going to fail. I feel like the Pac-12 problems are the exact same. And, Matt, I mean, you've been looking at TV stuff. What are your thoughts on it? Would you pay for a service just to get the same TV channels and stuff, but only streaming?
There were gaping holes in it. That's why I sent it to you, because I was hoping that it was going to trigger you. Because for as much streaming stuff as you do, I don't know how they thought that was going to be okay. I think had they've just tried to put together, and my gut is telling me that they probably didn't have the infrastructure in place, and so it was trying to piggyback off of packaging it with some other thing that they can just say, all right, well, now we'll steal the coverage from somewhere else and we don't have to worry about it. Because if I were a fan of the Pac-12 and I was looking for that kind of coverage, I don't know, like, as part of that package, Joe, if you already have cable, you already have like some kind of package where some of those basic channels are going to be involved with it, then like you're wasting money paying the $40 to have the access to that channel.
I just don't understand, and you're right, you're paying for the access of the channel, but I don't understand why they are owned by a bigger network like Fox. I don't understand why they don't make it an on-demand service. You're already paying each college to stream whatever they're trying to do. Why not actually try to get people to watch it and sell ads, just like television? I mean, they still give free channels away. The Super Bowl will be broadcast for free. You know how they make their money? Each ad costs over $1 million to get on there for like 30 seconds or whatever. It's going to be way more than that. I don't know the exact price, but you can look it up. Cost of a Super Bowl ad if you're curious, because I'm not going to look it up while I'm doing the show. But I will say they don't know, because you're right, they don't have the infrastructure, so they can't handle the streaming. So whenever they talk to people about putting an ad on their stream, they don't know. If instead Fox said, you know what? We own the Big Ten Network. I'm going to sit down and we're going to start the broadcast. You download the Fox app through whatever network it is. If it's Vidgo, YouTube Live, PlayStation, whatever the network is, you click on the Fox app, Fox Sports, because you know it's on there. And instead of having a separate Big Ten Network app, just have your favorite team. Okay, I want to follow Michigan. Let's see what sports they're on. Okay, they have every hockey game. And then because it's on the same network, then you're able to go ahead and say, okay, so-and-so, like we talked about State Farm earlier, you want to do your football ads? Well, we've watched every Michigan football game. We had all 10 on our streaming service. They get an average of 5 million viewers or whatever it is. This is the price. And then you have all the data in one place. But instead, they're splitting it. So you're having like, okay, one game's on Fox, one game's on ABC. For basketball, because basketball is the worst at it, and I think that's where the Pac-12 is really trying to hit with this VidGo, because you can have one basketball game on Fox Main, then you might have one on Fox Sports 1, then you might have one on Big Ten, then you might have a non-conference game that's on like your own website, like the mgoblue.com or whatever it is, MGO Blue TV or something like that. I forget what they call it. And so then you have like 4 different networks. You have no idea how the hell to watch these other sports. Football is a little bit easier to follow, but like all these little ones, you have no idea. And then they can't give you a good viewership because they'll say, well, we want you to pay this much for an ad, but we shoved that last game on Go Blue TV, so they only had 100 people watching it. And then they're like, okay, well, we're not going to pay that much for the ad then. And it's like a chicken and the egg. Just put them all in the same app. You already paid for them. Just let people watch it. It's just dumb. I don't know how else to explain it. So they're like stuck on old people like bandwidth, and they're like, okay, we have to do this. But then they're not innovating enough. Like at that point, I think the Pac-12 would be better off just creating their own app and letting people watch it for free. I'm serious. But bid out the biggest games and then just let everyone else watch it for free, because the minimum is you're going to get a lot of casual fans then watching. Like just say, hey, Twitter, you guys want to have our free games? Like you can just broadcast them on your little thing. Show them on the sidebar with just a Pac-12 logo. Like, I feel like that would be 100 times better than what they're doing. Because then people might like, hey, I like the Ducks. They always have different jerseys or whatever. I'll buy a jersey, or I might watch this or watch that. And then, of course, then you can show, okay, we've been putting our games on Twitter. We've been averaging like 1 million viewers each game. That's whenever then you can sell the ads, because then you have the numbers. But doing what they're doing now is just, no one's watching, so now they're like trying to do deals and they can't do them. So you're stuck with VidGo.
Fair to say.
I had one other topic on here before we wrap up the show, and it's tied in with that. I was watching Michigan. They played Big Ten hockey, and they have an issue with it's kind of tied in with the television network thing, because they only had a handful of teams. So they expanded. Penn State came into the league and they had a ton of money thrown at their program, and they used that to recruit well. And so Penn State came into the Big Ten conference in hockey, and the Big Ten conference needed like a doormat. And Penn State's been a ranked program since they came into the league. So now you have a ranked team that's just getting beat up with the rest of the league, and it's making the conference look like hot garbage. Notre Dame came in, they're sitting at like 500. Because Michigan came in, they started off the year horribly. And Michigan hockey, most national championships of all time. I think Denver's like right behind them. So you have that as like a historic blue blood in hockey. Notre Dame and Penn State were the highest ranked teams in the year. Michigan just swept both of them on the road. So now you're looking at the rankings. Penn State was like the number 1 Big Ten seed and knocked them all the way down to 3rd. And the conference only has like 7 teams. They're just beating each other up. At this point, and they only expanded because they wanted to get on the Big Ten network. At this point, it's not working out. The first year I think it happened, 3 teams made the Frozen Four. I think it was Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. None of them won it, which of course is a very Big Ten thing to do. Be runners up. Be runners up, get to the playoffs, and that's good enough. But when you're there, and then everyone else is just beating each other up, you have to at some point win a national championship in your conference to be taken serious. It's like the same problem with Big Ten basketball. So what are you doing? Get some of these club teams to join so that you have teams that can help inflate the rest of your team's records. Like right now, Michigan played Penn State 4 games in hockey, and their series is now done. I think it ended up officially, it was 2-1-1 in Michigan's favor. If you take the tie, I think the Big Ten doesn't do ties, so Michigan would go 3-1 versus Penn State. And that hurts Penn State. Penn State's the better team this year. But if you're looking at just getting beat up in conference, same with Notre Dame, it's not a good look. Like, you can't have all your top teams go 500 against the middle tier teams or worse. You just can't. You got to have a Rutgers. That's why people complain about Rutgers and Greg Schiano, Matt, what he's doing. He's already upping the recruiting game for Rutgers. You don't need Rutgers to do good. Go ahead.
Because I've been seeing more and more stuff about recruits and people like showing interest and being interested in Rutgers. And Rutgers was relevant when Schiano was there. So he knows the ins and outs. It seems like he's rallying the fan base. Are you concerned about Rutgers?
My thing is, you don't want them to be decent. Because when the Big Ten, even a few years ago when Brady Hoke was there, and Maryland and Rutgers are both beating Michigan, like it helped the Big Ten 0. Because then other teams were saying, well, Ohio State doesn't have a big win. Michigan State was right there, but they were like, well, we don't know how good they are because teams are losing to Rutgers and Maryland. Can you imagine if that was the norm? Like if Rutgers were just beating random top 10 teams in the Big Ten and then just doing whatever? I don't think Michigan was ranked high when Rutgers upset them. But still, you're beating a ranked team, and it was at home. Like, I think what these teams need to do is they need to just follow the Maryland blueprint. Go out, schedule Texas, beat them because they're always overrated, and then get destroyed in the Big Ten conference play. Then it's a win-win for both parties. You get your non-conference win, you can sell a bunch of tickets, and then the big boys come to town, and then you get killed. Like, that's the perfect Rutgers to me. You can't go lose to like Eastern Michigan and Illinois or Eastern Illinois and then Washington and then come in and beat Penn State. Like, to me, that's like the worst scenario. And that's where I feel like it's building. But can Schiano get them to be, if the rest of the Big Ten was as dominant as Jim Harbaugh has been with lesser teams, like I don't think he's lost to a lesser non-conference team since he's been there. I think the only loss was what? To Notre Dame? And this is outside of bowl games. But like in the regular season, if the rest of the Big Ten was able to do that, no one would have any problem with Rutgers being in the league. It's the fact that the Rutgers scare is whenever they lose to a MAC team and then they're only down like 6 points at the end of a Penn State game. It's like, what are you doing? You're making Penn State look bad because you guys just lost the week before to nobody. So I don't know. If Shawano can turn it around, win the non-conference games, then I don't care. Because, like, who was the other one? Minnesota? Minnesota struggled with a nobody in the non-conference. That's why no one took them serious even when they were undefeated. You can't do that. That's not how you row the boat.
But I don't think they're going to sleep on people anymore.
Well, I mean, last time they tried it, they came out and talked a lot of trash, and then Michigan beat them 78-0. They did their fence to garden campaign, how they didn't want teams coming into New Jersey, and Harbaugh ran the score up. Now, on the other hand, Franklin hasn't ran the score up. He's kind of like played it nice with them. And so that's why I think Penn State's ripe for the picking. And that's not what the Big Ten needs. They need Penn State to keep being dominant and being a top 10 team. They can't have a loss to Rutgers or a loss to Maryland. I know they're trying to be rivals with them. Maryland and Rutgers are both trying to be rivals with Penn State because, you know, Penn State, they're unrivaled, so they don't care. But they need to start caring because they need to start running the score up on them.
No, they don't want to run the score up because then they'll be bullies and they won't be able to recruit kids out of Jersey.
Bully them. Knock them down. You don't want Rutgers to get built up because, honestly, that's a Penn State fertile recruiting ground. You don't want that to go away. I think that's one of the reasons why the Big Ten, there are rumors that they were going to try to expand it to Virginia and things like that. I think that's kind of why Penn State was against it. And I think that's why a lot of the Big Ten expansion stuff was rumored to happen out west instead of the East Coast. Because the Penn State team, they have a monopoly on that with Ohio State and Michigan following up. I mean, you can't add another team into that could potentially cut out some of your recruits. You just can't do it. So you're better to gamble with another team for Nebraska, whether it be Missouri or wherever else out west, because I think Missouri was the rumor. I think that's why they did it. The West teams, they're not getting it done on a national scale. Bring in some new blood out there and then try to keep your Eastern teams happy. Why not? They're not getting Notre Dame. I mean, the Big Ten hockey, going back to that, they added Arizona State, so they're thinking outside the box. I don't know how that will work out due to travel and things like that, and how Arizona State's going to pay to compete just in one sport. Like, they would have been better to try to join the conference with Denver. But whatever, we'll see if it pays off. Maybe it'll be on VidGo, and I'll end up watching a game on there. Michigan and Arizona State, VidGo. I'll see what it is. You have any topics for the final bell?
No. Entering clinic season, getting closer to that time of year. Be going to see some Wing T speakers here pretty soon and looking excited for it.
Yeah, it's off season, as you can tell by our topics this week. So we have a lot of different things happening. Pro Bowl coming up, the Hall of Fame stuff, which just pisses me off that Barry Bonds didn't get in. They came back. I might as well add this to the final bell. They were saying now that Pete Rose can get in, along with Joe Jackson. Right after I complained about it last week, because they are saying that the Major League Baseball ban is only for life. And so once these players die, they're no longer banned, so the Hall of Fame can put them in. Which made me think, well, wouldn't they already be past the deadline? I'm just thinking, Matt, that they're setting this up so that when Barry Bonds doesn't get in through the writers, that the commissioner is going to add him later. Just like they're going to add Joe Jackson, just like they're going to add Pete Rose. I think it's going to slowly start to happen because you can't have Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and even Kurt Schilling and a bunch of other guys that are just top, looking at their numbers, that they're easily Hall of Fame. Because if you look at the list of let's see who's leading in home runs all time. Oh, how come he isn't in the Hall of Fame? It just looks so stupid as your sport. Oh, yeah, well, he wasn't breaking any rules, so we couldn't suspend him that year. Because that's what Major League Baseball is practically saying. Well, we really love the TV ratings, so we didn't suspend him. Oh, so those home runs, they do count? Well, yeah, we really don't know what else to do. Because that's where they're at right now. You look at the record book, and the leader is not in the Hall of Fame. That's so dumb. It's not a Hall of anything. Hall of laughs. It just annoys me. Like, what are you doing at that point? If he broke a rule, suspend him. Then guess what? He doesn't have any records. Very simple. Matt, it's very simple. I mean, they suspended Tom Brady even for whatever. Was it the fight game? I don't even know. He's still on top of the record books. He still has the most Super Bowl rings. They can't take that away. It's not like anyone else is going to be jumping up to that. I mean, they're practically begging for Mahomes to get his first one. Because then they're like, he's young enough where he might make a jump. Garoppolo's, however, how old is he? Did you see the stuff, ending with football, did you see the stuff John Harbaugh said about Lamar Jackson? He threw shade at Joe Burrow, dude. He said, I don't know why people are mad at Lamar Jackson playing in the playoffs. He's younger than Joe Burrow. That's what he said. He said, so people are high on him in the draft. Basically is what he's saying. People are high on Joe Burrow in the draft, but it's going to take him a while to get into Lamar Jackson's stance. And then he fired off some other quarterbacks that at that age hadn't even made it to the playoffs yet. Joe Montana, I think, was one of them.
Interesting.
We'll see. He came to bat for him. Like I said, I think a lot of that choking wasn't on Jackson. I think it was on the coaching. Very Andy Reid-esque. I mean, I think I saw a stat, like I said, the first quarter, the Chiefs had been down in every playoff game. Because that's the old Andy Reid. You got to play it conservative, Matt. Something bad could happen. This is the playoffs. Meanwhile, other teams come out and start to ram it down your throat. This year, they're just able to play it close enough. That's why I think it's a weird matchup, because Shanahan, he ran the score up with the Falcons at first, and then they came out and they were like, what are we doing? We gotta calm down. This is the Super Bowl. And then the Patriots won it. So is that the same thing going to happen? I'm reading the same storyline. Andy Reid comes out flat. Shanahan comes out hot. They both do a reverse, and it ends in a shootout. But we'll get more into that next week. Anything else you have for the show?
Check out our website. Check out all the stuff that we'll be putting out there here pretty soon, and get you some stuff. Support the podcast.
Yeah, definitely have some updates coming through. So if you see anything you like, let us know. We'll keep working on it. If there's anything else you want to see, also hit us up on there too. But definitely thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.